Hey, hello again. Welcome to this session. We're going to look at lobbying today. This video is going to be in two parts. I'm going to try to make it 10 minutes in each part. So let's soldier on. Now, lobbying, we have heard this word being bandied about often. We call people lobbyists. We say what you're doing is you're lobbying. Why are you trying to lobby this person or that person? Is lobbying bad? Well, let's find out. Let's find out what lobbying is. Let's find out its nature, why some people say it is bad, so why some people think it is awesome. And let's begin with a story. I'd like to share with you a story of the Love Canal Homeowners Association or the Love Canal incident. Now, Love Canal is a town in or in a neighborhood in US at the time, in the 1970s. Now, what happened in Love Canal was one lady realized that her children kept falling sick. She could not fathom why that was so. So she decided to do some investigations. Now, during her investigations, she realized that where their community is situated, where Love Canal was, the community was built upon a toxic dump. So, what this means is before the community developed, there was the neighborhood that they live in used to be a dumping site for a company where they dumped their toxic waste. And that was why a lot of children, a lot of people in the town were having strange diseases that they could not understand. So what did she do? She decided she would fight it. She would try to get things changed. She wanted, watch this, she wanted the whole community to be moved from where they were to a different community. Now, there's a community of about 500 homes, and she wanted all of them to be moved to a different neighborhood. Was this successful? Yes. She came together with other homeowners, formed an association called the Love Canal Homeowners Association. You can see the town in the photo over here, and then the people over there on your right having a meeting. So they lobbied their local authorities. This story went as far as it got to the president. And what it eventually brought about was the company that was responsible for dumping of that toxic waste was fined. I think they were fined hundreds of millions of dollars actually. And the people in Love Canal were relocated to a different neighborhood. Now, some people were even giving some funds to help with whatever challenges that they had gone through due to the toxic waste in their neighborhood. Now, what are we learning from here? We are realizing that one, the person who began this whole Love Canal action was one person, a woman, and she got together people and they lobbied their authorities to get things done. So you see, I used lobby again here. Now the question is, what is lobbying? What is lobbying? Now, before we move on to the next slide, remember that because of this Love Canal incident, America introduced I think it's called the Superfund Act. What the act does, it's a law. What it does is it's a fund that has been created to support people who find themselves in similar situations. Now remember, Love Canal apparently was not the only neighborhood or town that had companies dumping toxic waste, you know, in their neighborhoods. So all of such communities also got to benefit from the fight of Love Canal. So what is lobbying? Now, lobbying simply is an attempt to influence a decision made by an official in government. And most often you see it's the legislators or the lawmakers or members of regulatory agencies that are often lobbied because they are the ones who make the decisions. Now, Thompson and John in 2007, although dated, I like their definition because it's simple and straight to the point. It says any action that is designed to influence the actions of the institutions of government. So, you know the institutions of government already. So, any action by a body or an individual to influence the actions of the institutions of government is called lobbying. Now, is it only one person who does lobbying? Is lobbying done by two or three people? Is it must it be a large gathering of people trying to influence a decision that would be called lobbying? No. One person can lobby, as you saw with the Love Canal incident. It began with one individual before others even joined. So, yes, individuals, organizations, groups, even government officials sometimes also lobby their colleague government officials, pressure groups, individuals, as you see over here. So, any and all, anybody can lobby. However, there are also professionals who are paid to lobby. Now, in the Love Canal incident, the individual or individuals were not paid to lobby because, well, it was something that was affecting their neighborhood, their lives. So they were doing it for themselves. However, sometimes there are people whose job it is to lobby, people who study the art of lobbying, people like you. And these people are paid for their lobbying services. So there's that, and they are called lobbyists. But that does not mean individuals or organizations who lobby cannot also be called lobbyists. So as long as you're lobbying, you are a lobbyist. Now the question comes up, why do we even lobby? Why is it important? Why is it necessary for us to lobby? Now these questions are asked because people feel, why do you have to try to convince them? Do you have any shady deal behind? Do you have any evil thoughts? What are you trying to convince them of? Lobbying is not all bad. Now, there are very good reasons why lobbying is important. Lobbying exists to help protect an organization. That's one. Now, how does lobbying protect an organization? Sometimes, no, in fact, all the time, organizations face threats. And if you remember your SWOT analysis, the T in SWOT stands for threat. At any point in time, there's something threatening your organization. And what a lobbyist does is to try to find out what issues could become a threat to the organization and see how they can convince lawmakers or the legislators to not make laws that would affect their organization. So, for instance, if you are a lobbyist and you get to know that in your country they are now going to ban the importation of cannabis or what we call weed, your company may be, let's say, you provide cream, hair cream, and cannabis often helps in hair growth. So one of your main ingredients is cannabis. Now, if you find this out, what this means is your organization and any such organizations in the country who use cannabis for hair products are going to lose out. So, what you do is you try to lobby or persuade legislators to either reconsider the legislation, maybe if they are trying to say no importation of cannabis at all, maybe you try to negotiate and get them to say maybe no importation beyond this ton or tonnage. Yeah. So that is how you can go about protecting your organization as a lobbyist. Lobbying also assists in identifying new opportunities. How do you identify new opportunities as a lobbyist and how is it beneficial? As a lobbyist, you have access to the corridors of power. You are expected to have good network, and because of that, you get to be aware of certain policies or rules, regulations that exist that your competitors may not be aware of, or that do not exist yet but are about to exist, which could play into your favor. For instance, let's use the same example of cannabis and your organization being a hair cream provider. Now, if you're aware or you have the knowledge that this is the law that is coming, what you could also do is you could speak to your organization and then get your organization to do backward integration. Let's say rather than import the weed, get the seed or whatever they use to grow the weed and then start growing it somewhere here in your country. So by the time that law is passed, you will now be growing the weed in your country. And for all you know, some of your competitors may start buying from you. So this is a new opportunity that you would have identified. Now, lobbying also helps to build support. Now, when Love Love Canal incident began, when the woman found out what was happening, she lobbied her co-homeowners to join her in whatever it is that she wanted to do. So sometimes amongst politicians and civil servants, they lobby each other to help build support. So it is common to see one legislator approach another legislator and say, "Hey, we're going to about to vote on this bill. Could you vote this way or that way? This is why it is important." So sometimes lobbying also helps build support. Now, this example is an example of government, somebody in government lobbying another person in government, as mentioned earlier. You can also lobby to raise your profile. Now, sometimes as a lobbyist, the more you fight for an idea, the more you fight for a certain position that you believe in, the more you raise your profile. So now people in government see you as, okay, this person is a consultant. This person knows a lot about, let's say, child abuse because they have been lobbying on this child abuse thing for a long time. So sometimes you may find yourself being called upon when a new policy is being developed or framed concerning the subject matter that you are in. So sometimes when you lobby, you raise your profile and you put yourself in a position where you can avail your skills and your knowledge to the people in government to also support whatever activities that they are doing. Because, of course, they do not know everything. And whenever they are formulating policies, they often look for consultants or people who are knowledgeable in that area so that they help. And you could be that person. Now, what are some of the common objectives of lobbying? We lobby to maintain a stable regulatory environment. We lobby to ensure a level playing field. When we say a stable regulatory environment, I'm not going to explain everything over here, so let me pick the key ones. When when we say a regulatory environment is stable, what this means is you do not see these regulations or these laws changing every minute. Yeah, because when it is unstable, you at any point do not know what the law is or what the law says. And that is why sometimes even lawmakers are reluctant to change laws immediately, even when they realize there was an error with the law that they had made. Sometimes they want to let, as we say over here, man from man faso, yeah, give it some time and then we would sweeten the deal for you. Because an unstable regulatory environment leaves people always wondering, what if, what next? Should I not? So when you lobby, you fight to get these laws or policies stable because if a government is trying to change a certain law or certain policy, lobbyists often, speak against it. Because remember, whenever any law is passed, there are those who it favors, and then there are those who it doesn't favor. So within this power shift, whilst these people are trying to fight for and against, at least it makes sure the spectrum of what the law is does not quickly move to this side or that side, but there is always a balance, and that brings some stability into the regulatory environment. That is what we mean by that. To ensure a level playing field, basically, human beings are greedy and everybody wants things to be to their advantage. And of course, the rich are always trying to get things to their advantage, and then the poor, well, most of the time they have no voice. So when we say you're ensuring a level playing field, imagine that a big company that is into, let's say, felling of timber. Now, this company, because it doesn't want competition, could attempt convincing policymakers that, you know what, why don't we pass a certain policy that if you do not have these kinds of tractors or these kind of equipment, you cannot fell trees in Ghana or in whatever country you find yourself in. Now, what this means is those who are also in the business in that country, but who are not so financially stable to use those kind of equipment to fell tree, will lose out. So that's why there's lobbyists there to help fight for such people. So these people will also get a lobbyist, and the lobbyist will also try to explain to the decision maker or the lawmaker why passing such a law is not a good idea. So in the end, you're making sure that the playing field is level for everyone and people do not get undue advantage over others in whatever environment that you find yourself in. To secure funds for government is easy enough to understand. To communicate the core values of the organization, to communicate the commercial implications of government policy. Now, sometimes people lobby to communicate the commercial implications of government policy. What it means is they they get the message out there to the public that you see this government policy that is existing. These are the commercial implications. So these are the this is how it's going to affect businesses. Yeah, more often than not, people do not really understand the technicalities of legal language, or when laws are made, they read and they do not understand what does this mean. So lobbyists sometimes discuss or communicate the commercial implications of government policy to the public to ensure people go, then we do not support this policy, or then we totally support this policy. So it helps people be aware of what is actually going on the ground. Now, in rounding up, we'll talk about types of lobbying. We have the direct lobbying, that is, it involves a person telling his views to someone directly. So let's say there's a parliamentarian in there's a parliamentarian, yeah, and an individual or a group go directly to the parliamentarian and then explain that this is our worry or this is what we want you to do. You are the lawmakers or you are the decision makers. So do something about it for us. So direct lobbying to whoever it is that you want to lobby. And then there's grassroots lobbying. Now, the grassroots lobbying is when you lobby through, well, you know the word grassroots or the people. So rather than in this situation, rather than go to the person or legislator, if you feel the legislator is not going to be swayed properly because the person finds himself in a better position, sometimes when grassroots lobbying is done, where you lobby through the people, yeah, you tell the people this is what they are doing. Let us go, and when I say go, not necessarily a demonstration, but the idea is us to let us all come together to speak against it. So now the lobbyist will not be speaking directly to the parliamentarian or the legislator, but it will be coming through the grassroots or the people that the legislator serves. Now, what to consider before you lobby? Now, I think we would leave this for the next video and then we will consider that.